Your salary just landed. You pull up your bank app, spot that gorgeous 4-figure balance, and for approximately 3 seconds, you're living large. Then the real world crashes in. Rent's coming due Tuesday, your vehicle's making weird sounds again, you told your buddy you'd hang out this weekend, and mysteriously by Thursday, you're surviving on instant noodles, questioning where everything vanished. Ring any bells? I'm Dave, and I've devoted excessive hours understanding why payday resembles holiday mornings, but somehow morphs into financial nightmare territory by midweek. The issue isn't insufficient earnings. The issue is your approach is completely inverted. You're handling your salary like a loose guideline rather than a deliberate blueprint, and this inverted mentality is stealing your tomorrow. If you're somebody who checks their account and legitimately cannot explain where funds evaporated to, or if you've caught yourself declaring, "I'll put away whatever remains," only to find nothing ever remains, hit that like button and stay tuned, because today we're exploring something that sounds elementary, but will fundamentally transform your money mindset. We're discussing swallowing the frog on payday. Before you question whether I've completely lost it and believe amphibians somehow unlock financial prosperity, allow me to clarify. Brian Tracy authored a book titled Eat That Frog, and the premise is ruthlessly straightforward. Tackle the toughest, most critical task immediately. The frog represents that unpleasant, intimidating item you perpetually postpone. In productivity circles, it's typically that assignment you've been dodging. But regarding your salary, the frog is something most individuals never contemplate attempting. The frog is compensating yourself up front. Here's the typical sequence when paychecks arrive. People cover rent, they purchase provisions, they refuel their vehicles, they grab lattes, they handle credit card minimums, and subsequently, if anything survives, perhaps they'll deposit it into savings. But here's the mathematical truth that'll explode your perception. If you postpone saving whatever survives, nothing will ever survive. Your expenditures will mysteriously balloon to devour every cent you generate. It's not a personality defect. It's not insufficient willpower. It's human psychology colliding with fundamental finance. Wealthy individuals operate differently. They swallow the frog immediately. The instant their income reaches their account, before anything else occurs, they compensate themselves. They invest. They accumulate. They treat their future versions like the most crucial creditor imaginable. Because here's the reality about frogs. They don't become easier to digest if you delay. They simply grow larger and nastier. So what does swallowing the frog genuinely resemble practically? It means your initial transaction on payday isn't toward your landlord or the supermarket. It's toward your investment vehicle. It's toward your emergency reserves. It's toward your tomorrow. Before settling a single obligation, before purchasing a single item, you compensate yourself. And I anticipate your reaction. Dave, that sounds wonderful theoretically, but I've got obligations. I've got responsibilities. I can't simply ignore their existence. You're completely correct. You possess obligations. But here's what most individuals misunderstand. They assume all expenditures are equivalent. They treat their streaming subscription identically to their housing payment. They categorize their daily coffeehouse routine the same as their medical coverage. This represents financial catastrophe. If you're pursuing wealth accumulation, you require brutal honesty distinguishing between necessities and desires. Let me explain this because this is where most financial strategies crumble. Genuine necessities are shelter, sustenance, transportation, utilities, and healthcare. That's everything. Not premium television packages, not meal delivery platforms, not fitness memberships you utilize twice monthly. Those are indulgences disguised as necessities. And here's the benchmark that'll revolutionize your existence. Your genuine necessities should absorb maximum 60% of your net income. 60%, not 80, not 90, 60. Let me demonstrate the mathematics proving why the save whatever remains methodology fails. Suppose you net $4,000 monthly. Following conventional wisdom, you'd handle rent, which runs maybe $1,400. Then utilities $150, provisions $400, education loans $400, vehicle financing $300, insurance $200, fuel $100, phone $80. And immediately you're reduced to under $1,000. That seems substantial until your vehicle requires maintenance, your buddy suggests dinner, you must purchase celebration gifts, and suddenly you're examining maybe 200 remaining monthly. But what if you reverse the approach? What if your initial action when that 4,000 arrived was transferring 800 toward investments and reserves? Now you're compelled to make the remaining 3,200 function for everything else. Suddenly that 1,400 apartment appears costly. You begin questioning whether you genuinely require that 300 vehicle financing. You become inventive regarding provisions and merciless regarding subscriptions. I can already anticipate the resistance. Dave, you don't comprehend my circumstances. My housing alone consumes 60% of my earnings. My vehicle financing is devastating me. I reside in a costly metropolitan area. Look, I understand. Existence is expensive. But if your necessities are consuming beyond 60% of your earnings, you don't possess an earnings problem. You possess a lifestyle problem. And lifestyle problems demand lifestyle remedies. Perhaps that means acquiring a housemate. Perhaps that means operating a different vehicle. Perhaps that means residing in a different location. I recognize that's not your preferred message, but mathematics doesn't accommodate your emotions. Here's the harsh reality nobody discusses. Constructing wealth demands knowing precisely where every single cent travels. Not approximately, not roughly, precisely. Most individuals have zero comprehension what they actually expend resources on. They maintain a vague impression that resources arrive and resources depart, but they couldn't specify with accuracy where it travels. This resembles attempting weight loss without ever weighing yourself or tracking consumption. You might succeed accidentally, but probably won't. You must account for every cent, every beverage, every subscription, every spontaneous checkout purchase. I'm not declaring you cannot acquire these items. I'm declaring you must be conscious acquiring them, because unconscious expenditure is wealth building's adversary. When you don't know where resources travel, they travel everywhere except where they should travel. Once you've grasped your expenditure, once you've distinguished your necessities from your desires, once you've committed to compensating yourself up front, then we can address the sequence of operations. Because identical to mathematics having an operation sequence determining whether you achieve correct answers, money has an operation sequence determining whether you construct wealth or remain broke. Step 1 occurs before anything else. You compensate yourself up front. But step 2 is equally critical. You remain current on all obligation payments. Notice I didn't declare eliminate all obligations. I declared remain current. There's a distinction. You must handle at least minimums on every obligation you carry, and you must handle it punctually. Your credit rating is among your most valuable possessions, and one missed installment can demolish years of careful construction. I recognize it's tempting to bypass a credit card installment to enhance your accumulation rate. Don't attempt it. I recognize it's tempting to delay your vehicle installment because you want investing that capital instead. Don't attempt it. Safeguarding your credit rating is not discretionary. It's the foundation everything else constructs upon. A strong credit rating preserves you thousands on mortgages, vehicle financing, and even insurance policies. A damaged credit rating costs you capital monthly for years. Step 3 is constructing your emergency reserve, and this is where individuals become imaginative with their interpretations. An emergency reserve isn't for when you desire taking a vacation. It's not for when your buddy's ceremony is more expensive than anticipated. It's for when your vehicle malfunctions, when you lose employment, when existence happens and you require cash immediately. You require 3 to 6 months of your essential expenditures sitting in a mundane, high-yield savings vehicle, not invested in equity markets, not secured in cryptocurrency, mundane and accessible. Here's why this matters more than you realize. Your emergency reserve isn't exclusively about possessing capital for emergencies. It's about breaking the cycle maintaining you broke. When you don't possess an emergency reserve, every unexpected expenditure becomes a financial catastrophe. Your vehicle requires new brakes, so you charge it. Your device breaks, so you finance a replacement. Your pet becomes ill, so you borrow capital from your buddy who's probably broke too. Each catastrophe propels you further from wealth construction and deeper into the obligation spiral. But when you possess that emergency reserve sitting there mundane and predictable, something magical occurs. Emergencies become inconveniences. Your vehicle requires brakes. You write a draft. Existence continues. No drama, no credit card obligation, no borrowing from buddies, no derailing your financial blueprint because Tuesday decided throwing you a curveball. This is the distinction between individuals who construct wealth and individuals who merely survive paycheck to paycheck. Step 4 is where circumstances get interesting. This is where you begin investing for retirement. And I don't care if you're 22 or 52, this step is not discretionary. The most costly phrase in the English language is, "I'll begin investing when I'm older," or "I'll compensate later," or my personal preference, "I don't generate enough to invest." Let me demolish that last one with elementary mathematics. If you invest 100 monthly, starting at age 25, assuming a 7% annual yield, you'll possess over 260,000 by age 65. If you postpone until you're 35 to begin investing that identical 100 monthly, you'll possess about 130,000. You literally have your retirement by postponing 10 years. Time is more powerful than capital regarding wealth construction. You cannot purchase time backward, but you can begin purchasing your tomorrow today. Now, here's the part that makes me want to shake individuals. If your employer provides a retirement match and you're not contributing sufficiently to secure the complete match, you are literally abandoning free capital on the surface. This isn't complicated financial guidance. This is elementary mathematics. If your company matches 50% of your contributions up to 6% of your compensation, and you're not contributing at least 6%, you are voluntarily surrendering a 3% increase. Who does that? Apparently, about 40% of Americans do precisely that. Let me position this in terms that might hurt sufficiently to motivate you. If you generate $50,000 annually and your employer matches 3%, that's $1,500 of free capital you're abandoning every year for your entire career. Over 30 years, that free capital you ignored compounds to nearly $300,000. You literally discarded nearly $500,000 because you thought you couldn't afford investing $300 monthly. The mathematics gets even more brutal when you consider that most individuals expend more than $300 monthly on items they cannot even remember acquiring. Daily coffeehouse runs, spontaneous purchases online, subscription platforms they forgot they enrolled. You'll expend $40 on a meal you'll forget within a week, but you won't expend $300 monthly on a retirement you'll require for 30 years. Your benchmark should be 10% of your gross earnings flowing toward retirement, not your net compensation. Your gross earnings, that includes your employer match if you're fortunate enough to possess one. So if you generate $60,000 annually, you should be investing $6,000 annually or $500 monthly before taxation, before you observe it, before you possess a chance to expend it on something else. And please, for compound interest's sake, keep it elementary. You don't require picking individual equities. You don't require timing markets. You don't require finding the next Tesla or Bitcoin. You just require buying mundane index vehicles and never touching them. The S&P 500 has averaged about 10% annual yields over the past 90 years. That includes the Great Depression, 2 world conflicts, multiple recessions, and every financial catastrophe you can imagine. Just buy the index vehicle and go live your existence. Step 5 is where you finally get to assault your non-mortgage obligation with the fury of someone who just realized they've been paying interest to credit card corporations for no legitimate reason. But here's where individuals mess up. They try being too clever. They create elaborate spreadsheets comparing interest percentages and minimum installments and opportunity costs. Stop it. Pick one methodology and stick to it. You have 2 choices. The obligation snowball methodology, where you handle your smallest balances up front, or the obligation avalanche methodology, where you assault your highest interest percentage obligation up front. Mathematically, the avalanche preserves you more capital. Psychologically, the snowball gives you more victories. Pick whichever one matches your personality and execute it relentlessly. If you require the motivation of quick victories, go with the snowball. Handle the minimums on everything and throw every extra cent at your smallest obligation until it's eliminated. Then take that installment and add it to the next smallest obligation. The psychological boost of eliminating obligations completely will keep you motivated when the process gets tedious. If you're the type of individual who can delay gratification and you want to optimize for mathematics, go with the avalanche. Handle minimums on everything and assault the highest interest percentage obligation up front. You'll preserve more capital in interest over time, but you might not witness an obligation disappear for months. The methodology matters less than the consistency. Most individuals fail not because they picked the wrong strategy, but because they kept switching strategies. They do the snowball for 3 months, then read an article about the avalanche and switch, then get distracted by some guru telling them to invest instead of handling obligation, then try to do everything simultaneously and end up doing nothing effectively. Pick one methodology, write it down, execute it until every non-mortgage obligation is eliminated. No exceptions, no creative financing, no balance transfers to 0% cards unless you possess the discipline of a monk and can guarantee you'll handle it before the promotional percentage expires. Most individuals can't, which is why credit card corporations provide those deals in the first place. Here's what happens when you actually follow the system. When you get your next increase, instead of lifestyle inflation consuming the entire increase, you have a blueprint. 50% of the increase goes to increasing your accumulation and investment percentage. 25% goes to accelerating your obligation elimination, and 25% can go to improving your lifestyle if you want. This way, you actually get richer as you generate more capital instead of just getting more expensive. When you handle an obligation, you don't suddenly possess more capital to expend. You redirect that installment to the next obligation or to your investment vehicles. The installment doesn't disappear. It gets reassigned to constructing wealth instead of servicing obligation. This is how individuals who don't generate massive compensations still end up wealthy. They understand that every cent has a job, and the job changes as circumstances change. Actually, the beautiful thing about this system is that it functions regardless of how much you generate. Whether you're earning $30,000 or $300,000, the principles are identical. Compensate yourself up front, know where every cent goes, safeguard your credit, construct emergency reserves, invest for the tomorrow, eliminate obligation, and adjust as existence changes. It's not attractive. It's not revolutionary. It won't make you rich overnight, but it will make you rich eventually, and eventually is better than never. The reason most individuals never construct wealth isn't because they don't generate enough capital. It's because they don't possess a system. They make financial choices based on emotions, impulses, and whatever their broke buddies tell them at happy hour. They treat capital like it's mysterious and complicated when it's actually brutally elementary. Generate more than you expend. Invest the distinction. Don't do anything stupid, and wait. But here's where most individuals completely lose their minds. They think this system is too restrictive. They think budgeting means they can't enjoy existence. They think compensating themselves up front means living like a hermit who subsists on instant noodles and tap water. That's not what I'm declaring at all. I'm declaring you require being intentional instead of accidental with your capital. The distinction between broke individuals and wealthy individuals isn't that wealthy individuals don't expend capital on items they enjoy. It's that they decide in advance what they're going to expend capital on, and then they expend it guilt-free because it's part of the blueprint. When you possess a system, when you know precisely where every cent is supposed to travel, you can actually relax about capital instead of constantly worrying about it. Here's what I mean. If you've already compensated yourself up front, if your obligations are covered, if your emergency reserve is growing and you've allocated $50 for entertainment this week, then you can expend that $50 on whatever makes you happy without feeling guilty about it. You're not stealing from your tomorrow. You're not sabotaging your financial blueprint. You're expending capital you specifically designated for fun. The problem is that most individuals do this backwards. They expend capital on entertainment up front, then stress about whether they can afford their obligations, then panic about not possessing any accumulation, then feel guilty about every acquisition they make. That's not living. That's financial anxiety masquerading as a lifestyle. When you swallow the frog up front, when you handle the most important financial task before you do anything else, something interesting happens to your brain. You stop feeling deprived and begin feeling empowered. You stop feeling like capital controls you and begin feeling like you control capital. You stop making choices from a place of scarcity and begin making them from a place of abundance. And let me tell you what happens when you don't swallow the frog. When you postpone until the end of the month to see what's remaining for accumulation. When you treat investing like an afterthought instead of a priority. You become what I call a financial procrastinator. You keep telling yourself you'll begin accumulating next month. You'll invest when you secure that increase. You'll construct an emergency reserve after you handle this one credit card. You'll begin caring about your tomorrow self tomorrow. But tomorrow never arrives. Next month transforms into next year. That increase gets absorbed by lifestyle inflation before you even notice. The credit card gets handled and immediately gets run up again because you never address the underlying expenditure habits that created the obligation in the first place. You expend your entire existence waiting for the perfect moment to begin constructing wealth, and the perfect moment never arrives because you're still waiting for it. So here's your choice. You can keep doing what you've always done and keep getting what you've always gotten, or you can swallow that frog on your next payday. Compensate yourself up front. Follow the system and watch your tomorrow self thank you. In about 20 years, when you're sipping beverages while your broke buddies are still complaining about capital, the frog tastes terrible going down, but financial freedom tastes pretty sweet on the other side. If this approach helps you finally take control of your money, smash that like button and let me know you're building your future with winds of thought. Swallow the frog up front or stay broke forever. Your expenses expand to consume every dollar you earn.